Okay, good evening. Welcome to the February 15th meeting of the Finance Committee. We are here this evening to continue our review of departmental budgets. Tonight we have on our agenda to meet with the Conservation Commission, the IT Department, the Council on Aging, and then review Board of Selectmen, which encompasses quite a few areas, and then I believe we're going over the treasurer collector budget, but I'll wait for Charlie to confirm that. So with that, we will get started. So conservation, come on up. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm Alex Welch. I don't think I've met any of you. I'm the conservation agent for the town.
Oh, welcome. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
you.
And I'm Claire Yocum, I'm the Chair of Conservation Commission. So I just wanted to just bring you up to date what's been going on in the commission, and then Alex will present the budget. For all the years that I've been on it, and we've had a commission, we've had a clerical person, and we've had a line item for engineering. At beginning of September, our clerical person decided that she wanted to move on. She's still working for the town, but in a different capacity. And our engineering services, which is John Delano and Associates, John is not renewing his contract at the end of this year. He is retiring officially. The commission decided that we needed to then look at both, losing both those positions, and we decided to hire for the very first time a full-time conservation agent. And then with some clerical support. So that's kind of where we've been. Now Alex can present what we're going to do moving forward.
Yeah, so we're hoping the big thing for us this year is to hopefully get a 19 an hour a week senior clerk position in the office. This is to help out with just paperwork and email workload. There's a lot of phone calls that come in, just being able to handle that and document those things and have better organization in the office. There's a lot of paperwork that comes in as required through the filings to the commission, so space is tight and it's only getting tighter, and it would be great to have it organized a little better. So yeah, and I put my own position on here as a conservation agent. So you can see that the professional services and engineering account is being removed. We're hoping to use some of the funds that are usually allotted towards that to supplement the position for the clerical person. There's a supplies office, just general office supplies for the year of $1,100. That's stayed pretty consistent throughout the years. I've looked at older budgets. I don't know if that's changed in a while. I'd say that's appropriate. We have some supplies that is old, and boxes of old pens that are dried up. I need to do a WB Basin invoice pretty soon, so I think that's an appropriate amount for us. Other charges and expenses. So that's for the MACC, Mass Association of Conservation Commissions, fees and dues. It's also for trainings that they might put on, and just any other trainings that might be held in the state. And those would be trainings for commission members to take, or myself. And then the MS4 professional service engineering, that's also been removed. So yeah, that's the gist of our budget. It's pretty simple.
And I apologize, I may have missed this when you first started, but
Sure.
so the line items for what John Delano was doing get absorbed into your position. Okay.
It
Yes,
does,
yeah.
yeah.
Now, Alex is full-time, so Alex will be out at job sites every day. He'll be, reviewing all the applications that come in. He'll be on site for some inspections, either by himself, or he'll be accompanied by, if Environmental Partners, the town's engineering consultants, he'll go out with that. So right now, November 1st he started. So it's a slower time right now of the season for this. But we know moving forward, when the weather breaks and he's gonna have to be out in the field more, there's just not enough time for him to do all the clerical part of it too. And this is, by having the full-time agent, it's moving the department forward in the way it needs to be done. So we're staying on top of everything in conjunction with our new environmental partners, with the new town's engineers. So having making sure all the paperwork is done, so we don't want to do a good job on reviewing everything and then our paperwork is slipping, because that's going to impact the residents and the applicants.
Yep. So I'll just add to that. So John Delano has only been on, in recent years, I believe, for only 15 hours a month, and he's the field side of things. So as a result, and he's done a wonderful job. As a result, it's just too much to keep up to do site inspections, and we issue permits that have special conditions that require inspections, and they're just not getting done to the full extent that they should be. Now they are a little bit more, but having a clerical person to handle some of that workload would allow me to get out of the office more, and enforce those permits.
I mean, I think from a department standpoint, it makes sense to put the dollars in a level of your position that's actually doing what the Conservation Commission should be doing versus handling paperwork and
Yeah,
applications
definitely.
and things. And you have more control.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's been good learning process for Alex to be able to do, both sides. Extremely pleased that he decided to join us, very happy.
So I have a couple of questions. Which budget, it says FY '22 budget,
Yeah,
FY '22 budget?
Sort of asked the same thing.
Which is the one that was passed at town meeting?
Actually not.
They both say,
The
one says level
80
funded, one says level services, so is
With
it a
educational,
different year?
with the educational one, the 82 was the one that was,
Okay, it was level services was voted at town meeting? Okay,
yes.
all right.
That didn't really have anything to do with it, education, did it? That had just,
That
that
had to
supplemented
do with-
the engineering.
No,
No.
that had to do with, in the clerical line, the job title changed to administrative assistant, and then
But they're the
we were
same,
paying her 2% for her degree.
it's the same number,
But
right? Am I,
The difference was
the
really
difference is in the engineering line. So does that mean FY, is the right-hand side of where the yellow is, the yellow area, is that fiscal '23? Was that supposed to be, or?
No.
Oh, you're looking at the one handed out tonight?
Yep.
Okay, so I was looking at the ones that Melanie sent.
Oh,
So I think, Dave, you're asking maybe the same question I am, is what was the department's budget for last year versus what you're asking for this year is kind of, was it in fact the 82?
82.
Okay, so what then was the increase? Was that just more hours for John Delano that was ultimately voted to the 23,400? From 16,778 that it showed?
So yeah, probably shouldn't have been in that. It should have been with the 2% with the education. It was supposed to be up on the
Okay.
clerical line.
Yeah, the budget that Melanie had sent out has fiscal year '22 budget at the 82,330. So that would have been what was approved at town meeting.
Yes.
And those numbers, the numbers on this sheet that they handed out match. Minus me not having my glasses.
So a portion of that Delano money went towards salary and then to fund the proposed position. So just for edification for folks at home, Conservation Committee, what is their role and responsibilities and what do they do in the town? Not everybody knows.
Yeah.
The only time you ever hear is, oh, the Conservation Committee wouldn't let me do this or do that, right? Like, that's question number one. Question number two is, what revenue do you bring into the town for folks to know?
So we enforce the Wetlands Protection Act. Conservation is also one of the two stormwater authorities in the town. We handle, and both of those bring in revenue for the town. They both bring in, have filing fees associated with them. And that's the gist of it, very lightly speaking, so I can go into more detail. New septic is going in within 100 feet of a wetland. We have jurisdiction to look at that and review that project, make sure it's being installed, to protect that resource area. We get a lot of septics coming in, so that's probably something most homeowners might be, accustomed to hearing about us for, so, yeah. And stormwater, it has to deal with impervious surface area or disturbance, larger construction projects in the town, usually anywhere over 5,000 square feet. Folks will have to apply for a stormwater permit, and that's an EPA requirement that the town carries out. So any larger projects that you see development-wise, and we'll be working on, and at least at a stormwater level, if not a wetlands Mass DEP level as well.
And is there, so it's stormwater and working with the DPW, et cetera, things like that, are there separate fees that the conservation committee assesses? Or does it all go through like another department and you just help supply the knowledge?
No, we do require fees. We have fee schedules that can be available at request that are updated and voted on by the commission over time. Anything from a one-house lot up to, this large warehouse going up on 798 that's proposed, and the fee structure grows as the project grows in size.
Does the permitting for that go through the town's permitting system? Or the application, I'm sorry? Or is it a separate application?
It's a separate application.
Yeah, I think what you're asking for is separate, yeah.
With, other than stormwater, with the fees for conservation, there's a percent that is for the town, and then there's a percent that goes to the state. With the stormwater, it's to the state if it falls under our jurisdiction, conservation's jurisdiction, so if it's a stormwater with a wetland.
So you're getting, assuming this report to be accurate, you're getting to the point of maybe 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year, and the engineering has only been $6,000 out of, it's not even a third of the budgeted amount for '22. Is that reflective of the fact that there has just been less activity? Is that reflective of the turnover, the changeover in the department, or what's kind of the driving force for that?
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at a number of fiscal year 2022 expended $6,000
Oh.
of 23.4 for the budget year.
Well,
We
that could
pay-
depend on if all the invoicing. is
Sure,
up to
that's,
date.
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so,
He's paid Delano's paid $1,500 a month.
yeah, he gets
So,
$1,500 a
and
month.
I think we just approved,
There's 2 payments that haven't gone through on that, the January, and I was just speaking with him, and he hasn't gotten the,
December.
I believe the December one either.
So that would explain that. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
So how many vernal pools do we have in this building?
That's what he's gonna do once we get clerical,
check
but
it
he'll
out.
go and
Yeah,
count
that's
them.
I'm just curious, I don't know.
It's a lot coming up, so we're pleased to be able to have someone, we've needed someone full-time. We really have, to be able to go out if somebody calls, if there's, development going on and there's a problem with it or a complaint or something. We used to have to call Delano and have Delano go out at the end of his workday or early in the morning or something like this. Now, it definitely is a benefit to have, for the town, to have a full-time agent.
And will there be, if the connection to the Brockton sewer line goes through, will you get involved with that as well?
Yes, because
Yeah.
I think that will have some,
Stormwater,
Likely, yeah.
Likely, okay.
Likely.
yeah, that'll be, yeah,
Wetlands in there.
there's wetlands.
wetlands in there,
Yeah.
yeah.
Down at
Yeah,
the
there's a
end of
lot,
18, right?
there's a lot of
Yeah.
wetlands, yeah.
18 and a half.
It's all wet.
Whole town's wet.
Not my basement, I put a sub pump in, so.
It's high and dry.
So, all right, that's good.
Any other questions? All right, well, welcome again.
Thank you.
For coming in.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Good luck, Claire's a tough video.
Okay, next up, we have Brian with the IT budget.
Did you send out the updated copy I sent you? I have copies as
That
well.
was a couple weeks ago, right? like the
No, it was
4th?
the email chain we went back.
Oh, the one that came out today. I did forward it. I don't know if
Oh,
everyone
Just in the off chance that we.
got to print it, though.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Apologize that it's
Thank
small.
Yeah, I had printed it.
316, 721. No? No, definitely. Didn't get, okay.
All right. Well, thank you for seeing me. I apologize for the coffee. I have 2 one-year-old twins at home, and they tend to wake up at like 2 in the morning. So, just like previous budgets, I presented a line-by-line item for my budget, just to be as transparent as possible. To make things a little easier, anything in blue is a new cost for the town this year. Some of them are things that were built into previous capital projects that now we're incurring the cost of, that either a 3 or a 5-year license have expired and we just need to pick up now in the yearly budget. The very first thing is obviously my salary line. I have a contracted 2% increase on it, and that the line item reflects it. It's up to you if you want me to go through every single item or not, or I can just go through the new items. However you guys want me to go through it.
I mean, it's not a huge budget. We have time. I think it would be helpful. I think IT's newer, obviously, and with you now being full-time and kind of having the time to assess everything, I think it's good for the committee to understand, and then for anyone watching on TV to kind of understand where we're evolving from a technology perspective.
Absolutely. So I'll start with the very first item. It's a town website and hosting renewal. This is the town website. This is what we pay yearly for our cost. I added a 10% increase on it. Typically, it runs anywhere from 6 to 10% increase. So they can't really give me a new figure about a year out, because this is when our renewal comes up. So that's an estimate on my part. A lot of these numbers are estimates because a lot of these renewals are, potentially 14 months out, depending on when the renewal comes. Town managed service contract. We do contract an outside company for server and network support and 24-hour support for police and fire. Me being a department of one, I try to do as much as possible, but when I have to take a vacation or sick time, it's nice to have contracted services with a company that allow police to get support at 2 in the morning. Microsoft Office 365, that is our town email system. Our costs are per person per month. So when you start adding up the total number of people we have, that's when you get that number. Online email threat protection. This was a new item last year. We changed who we were using for our email spam filter / security from Microsoft to a company called Barracuda because they were doing more for us. One of the biggest reasons for this change last year was public record requests. We're getting more and more email-based public records requests, and this product allows us to cut down that public record request time from hours to minutes, hopefully, ideally. it allows us to use a tool called eDiscovery, which basically allows me to use keywords to search multiple people's mailbox if we have a large public record request, rather than going through every single person's email account individually.
Oh, to identify when one comes in.
No. So when a public record request happens, like say we had one relating to this FinCom meeting, in the past I would have to mount every single email box individually and look through them and do searches manually.
Okay.
With a product like this, I can just look at keywords and search large groups of accounts at once. So
So are you doing those?
for email, yes.
For email, okay.
Yes, yeah. Typically, electronic public records requests are through me, with conjunction of the clerk's office.
So you do the search for the clerk's office?
Depending on what needs to be searched, they don't have access to our email backend. Only myself and our managed service provider do, because there's a lot of confidential information, and depending on the access, anyone can see it. Typically, if there's an email search request, I'm the one that does it.
How do you, I think I'm a little bit confused. If someone sends a records request to the town clerk's office or the planning board, do you get them first?
No, what will happen is they will reach out to me to perform that search.
Okay. So,
So, hypothetically, say a FinCom public records request comes in.
right,
If it's specifically regarding email or anything electronic, what will happen is the clerk's office will reach out to me with a copy of the public records request, and I will perform that search for them, and I will give them the results. Or
so basically the town clerk's office doesn't fulfill the records
no,
request?
they're doing their, because what will happen is I will get them that information, and then they will give it to the what's it called, because they just don't have access to that confidential information.
Can I ask another question? Do you, I see this town school social media and website archiving, do you back up, are you capable of backing up on Facebook?
So that is a new item that I have for this year. That's actually exactly what's that for.
Good,
That is
okay.
for. Because we're getting more and more public records requests, and we have numerous town websites between the town, police, fire, school, library, DPW, as well as a large number of board social media accounts. This tool allows us to have one spot of archiving all that information. Right now, say someone had a public records request for relating to anything on Facebook, we would have to individually go through every single Facebook account. With this tool, it allows me to have one spot that even if the post is deleted, as long as it was live during that point, I can go and pull a screenshot of that post. So that is a new item for this year. Typically, I felt it was. I actually recently added this. I felt it was important enough to bring forth this year, so late into the budget stage.
Yeah, it's funny.
Moving through town backups, that is just a renewal. That is all of our server information moved to another site. So if something happens, if we have a fire in this building, we still have that data archived at another location. That cost is licensing for the number of servers we have. So the increased number of servers we have, that licensing goes up per month. Remote desktop software.
Do you have virtual servers, or do you have actual
So
servers here?
the vast majority of our servers are virtualized in a server farm we have down in the police departments. We have a few standalone older servers that are in place, just places they need to be. For example, the fuel server is actually it's a standalone box that's housed at the fire department. The company that we use says it can't be virtualized. I don't necessarily believe them, but it voids our warranty if I screw around with it too much. So anything I can virtualize, I do, because it ends up being cheaper for us in the long run. And plus, it allows us to do backups better.
Before you go forward, the email component on the Microsoft 365, you're charged per person
Yes.
in the town. Is that policed when people leave or terminated,
Yes.
updated,
Yep.
et cetera? Okay.
Yep. So every year, I usually allocate for about 7 to 10 additional licensing for over the total number of staff we have, just because if we have new people coming in, new people leaving. That way I don't have to go out and purchase new licensing and things like that. Anytime I always make sure that the treasurer's office or the other departments know that if we do have a staff leave, I'm part of that process where I get notified if the person is leaving. And it allows me to shut off the accounts and free up any licensing involved with that person, as well as making sure that the archive is still there for that person. Because even if a person leaves, we are still responsible for the archiving of that person in case of public records requests. Just to continue going through, remote desktop software. This is $400. This is the software I use that if I'm trying to access someone's computer remotely so I can help them, rather than having to walk over to their desk if they're in another building, I can just go through my list, see that person's computer, see exactly what they're seeing on their screen and help them remotely. It really came in handy during COVID when people were potentially working from home. Then I could just, as long as I had an internet connection, I could just jump right on the computer. So this is SoftWrite is our budgeting software. This is always been in my line. So I typically add a 10% increase on it, just like I said with my other lines. Usually it comes in a little under that for increased costs, but so we're starting to get into a few new items here. VMware Vcenter support contract. When we purchased our servers 3 years ago, we got a 3-year contract for virtual licensing. Next year is our first year that 3 years is over, so this is our licensing for those. Sentinel One. A few years ago, we purchased Sophos for endpoint protection for desktops and servers. With the increased threat of ransomware, I wasn't 100% happy with Sophos on our server side. So last year, I opted to switch over to a different company and get the cost from my budget. This is that new line moving forward. It's a server endpoint protection as well as ransomware protection. G Suite licensing for board email accounts. This is a new line for next year. One of the things we haven't done well in the past is technically all your email accounts are subject to public records requests, anything you're doing with the town. For the most part, most boards use personal email accounts. Unless I come begging and you give me access to your email accounts, your personal one, I don't really have a good way to do public records requests. So this is a potential project to move all of our board members over to a Gmail-based email account. Once we decide to do it, we would give all of our board members town-controlled email accounts with archiving and things like that to control public records, just to make sure that if anything happens, we have records of everything. Off-site backup. So right now, without going into too much detail, the town is backing up to 2 different sources, directly below our physical servers through a 10 gig connection and over at the high school. We're looking, and when I say we, myself and the school, are looking to create a 3rd backup location, just in the case we have a major storm come through and takes out both sites. We're potentially looking at 2 different sites. One would be Taunton at the TMLP data farm, or the second site would be Barnstable at Open Cape and their data farm. This is that reoccurring cost, and it would be split between myself and the schools. It's basically an internet connection over there and rented rack space and power for equipment that would be potentially looking to put in. I already touched on the archive social piece. This is that town website backup and social media backup. Townwide GIS system. This was a new item last year. This is the town permitting software. You're seeing a larger increase over 10% because we're moving some funding from the planning building department. They were carrying that as a one line item for theirs, so I'm moving that over to mine, and they should be removing that number from theirs. So that's kind of more of just an accounting cleanup. SSL certification. That's just a web cert that we use for our town websites. It's a yearly renewal cost. Multi-factor authentication. So this is a larger line item this year. Last year, we had a capital project for multi-factor authentication for the town logins. If you're not familiar with what multi-factor authentication is, it's basically if you ever log into your bank account and you get a code sent to your phone, that's what multi-factor authentication is. It's a second source of logging in for protection. This is very soon going to be a requirement of our cybersecurity insurance. So this is our a reoccurring cost every year moving forward. When I presented the capital project last year, we funded the very first year of our reoccurring cost as part of the capital line. I did meet with you, I believe, just to talk about it, just to let you know that this would be a reoccurring cost moving forward. FortiGate firewall renewal. This is our licensing for the town firewalls. The next item is actually a removal. When we first got into COVID, the town purchased a GoToMeeting license to support large meetings up to 250 people. We're not using it anymore because COVID's, don't want to say winding down, but we've got a better grasp of how we're handling it. We've decided to move any virtual meetings through Teams, which is through part of our 360 licenses. So I'm removing that number. Web hosting for assessors database, like the planning board with People's GIS, this is just a number that's getting moved. Actually, let me rephrase this. This is actually a number that's always been paid out of my budget, but there's never been a line item for it. It's one of those things where the bill came in, they're just like, it's IT, let IT pay for it. So I'm actually creating a line item for it. And other than that, it's just computer upgrades for replacement of equipment that happens to break over the course of the year, and $2,500 for IT director supplies. If I have to buy into small pieces of software for data recoveries or things like that, that's what that catch-all is.
Thank you. I mean, I just have to, I think you're doing a great job. IT and the security of all the networks of the town is just so critical. I think anyone who's read the papers and may have seen what just happened to the city of Quincy with the ransomware attack that they just had. That's the last thing that we need to have.
I always tell people, I could spend millions and millions of dollars on protection for the town, and it's not 100% safe. There's always going to be some type of, exploit here. Most people don't know how antiviruses work. It's basically a hacker finds a hole, and people get hit with a virus, and then antiviruses realize what that hole is, and then they fix it for everyone else in the world. I always say that it's not a matter of if we get hit with ransomware, it's a matter of when and how bad it is. One of the things that I did this year is I changed our backups from nightly backups to hourly backups. So if we do get hit with ransomware, it's a matter of how much data we lose at that point. Obviously, I never want to lose any data, but hypothetically, if something happens, I would much rather lose an hour of the town's work than a day's worth of their work.
And what I think one of the biggest vulnerabilities that you have, unfortunately, is the human impact.
Yeah.
And being in banking, we spend so much time trying to educate not only our employees but our clients on a lot of these scams and things that are happening. Is there an educational program that happens with town
we actually
employees?
partner with the state on that. We're actually in our second year of cybersecurity training. There's a grant that I applied for last year that we went through. Went through training for all the staff. We're doing it again this year. It's great. It's most of it relates to social and email filtering. There's courses that staff have to take, as well as simulated phishing attacks too. That if they, click on one of them, it'll bring them to a page where they're like, "Hey, this is simulated. Maybe you should review the data," or it'll take them back to a past lesson that it'll actually make them go through. So, yeah. So anything we can do as far as grant wise to help the staff is 100% great in my book. Mm-hmm. The state offers a lot of these different trainings, and if it's something that will help our staff realize any mistakes that they may be doing, or to no cost to the town, I'm all for.
That's great. And I think it's also, it's important to recognize as a committee in a town that IT costs typically don't go down. They only continue to go up as we need to continue to protect, as best as possible. To your point, nothing's ever 100%.
Yeah,
but-
there's an old saying in IT that I always bring back to, when everything is going great in IT, they always say, what the heck are we paying you for? Or why are we paying for this? And then when something goes wrong, it's what the heck are we paying you for?
Right.
So IT is a very thankless job. It's, unfortunately, most of my costs you're never going to see, and if you do see it, there's an issue.
So the first line here, is this still split with Hanson?
No, I'm full-time. As of July 1, I am full-time just for the town of East Bridgewater.
So this was your first?
This is my first full year.
Yeah.
And we have time for him to get coffee, let's get him busy.
The twins now.
No, it's I think the change has been good. I've been able to do a lot more documentation things like writing up like incident response plans, disaster recovery plans, a lot of things that I always had in my head what we would need to do, but it's always good to have on a piece of paper. And then you see at the bottom of my budget in red, those are costs that we got multi-year contracts on to just try to get some cost savings. So it actually says which year they'll be coming back into the budget. But I just wanted to make sure that it was on as a line item so you would see it and it wouldn't be a surprise for a future year.
That's very helpful, thank you. Any questions for Ryan?
I'm all set, thanks.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next, we have the COA. Come on up.
Okay, if I pass out a little PowerPoint,
Please.
I don't know, I mean, this is the format that I have my budget in.
Oh, if that's what you want to go, yeah, that's fine.
I'm not sure.
If you want to hand that out,
Will you?
we can always tie it back to Melanie.
Yeah, the budget is fine. I got the other one at home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, and you?
Good, thanks, how you doing?
Yours is a little bigger than Ryan's. Print-wise.
Oh, okay.
No, not side, but
I was
print,
gonna
no.
say,
No.
Probably one of the,
We were squinting on his. Did you want to start with the budget or the PowerPoint,
here we
or?
are again. The PowerPoint is really just informational, pointing out some of the, just a snapshot of some of the things that we do. We do provide services for everyone 60-plus in the community, as well as those who are disabled of any age, which many people don't realize. We see everyone in town who's in need of assistance with fuel assistance or SNAP benefits. Unforeseen financial needs tend to come to us, and we do the best we can to help them out. The senior population is growing. And the third page is just some numbers obtained from the Donahue Institute, as well as Sue Gilpatrick, Town Clerk. As of the beginning of this year, we have 3,752 residents aged 60-plus, which is about 27% of the population, and only expected to grow. The next page just shows that although our building was closed for much of the year, we did open in June of last year. Our interactions actually grew, as well as our Meals on Wheels program, so we were busy, even though we didn't have residents coming into the building for normal programming. The next page is just a snapshot of my total budget for FY '23. Additional sources of funding, I do receive a formula grant from the state every year, which is based on the federal census, which is still based on the 2010 federal census. The new numbers have not arrived yet.
So that, would you expect that to maybe go up?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I think probably the amount per elder is going to decrease, so there won't be
Oh, okay.
too much of a bump. And then we had, still in the middle of a health crisis, we had 67 volunteers who donated over 1,700 hours of their time.
There used to be a grant from an association out of Brockton that you received. Do you still get that one?
We have not gotten that since March of 2020. We received the last one, and that's only because it's for programming only.
Oh, okay.
So we've been spending it down, and I can request another grant when we get close to the end of that one.
Okay.
The last page just shows a couple of photos. We did have in September a remembrance service for those residents who we lost during the course of the pandemic in 2020, 2021, which was very moving and needed by staff and residents who attended, so. So my budget is rather self-explanatory. The top half is salaries only, the bottom is general expenses. I have 3.5 employees. Myself and another employee are eligible for a sick time buyback. You can see that my van drivers are very part-time. The hourly minimum wage will be increasing January 2023 to $15 an hour. So I have included that rate there in this budget. And I am entitled to regular and special longevity pay. I am anticipating that this upcoming contract will be my last. So that's where the special longevity comes in.
Is that with the kicker? Is that what that is?
The special longevity, yes.
When is your contract up?
This one is up June 30th
Of next year?
of this year, and then I anticipate another 3-year.
Oh, one, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha, okay.
And then my general expenses are minimal. My telephone cable bill after I did my budget actually went up $30 a month. I did just delete a couple of lines that we found out were obsolete. We weren't using them, so hopefully that will help with that. Our postal permit already has gone up to $265. And the other expenses are, of course, our office supplies are usually our biggest expense.
Who pays the heat?
That comes out of the building maintenance, facilities maintenance budget.
Is that DPW?
Utilities, I believe they're their own
Townwide.
department, facilities,
Facilities?
Yeah, they manage the townwide buildings.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I'm not responsible for utilities or plowing, site work, any of those things.
Pretty straightforward.
It is. I'm fortunate to have 2 longtime employees. that have been with the Council on Aging since 2009, and my part-time employee has been with us for, I think, 2.5 years now. So we have some longevity in the department. And we still like each other.
And now you said the building's back open, so is programming started again?
Yeah, we've opened again in June. Programming has been slow. We're gradually getting back to whatever the new, I hate to say it, the new normal is going to be. We've been a little reluctant to bring large groups of people together, especially with this latest variant, but now that that's waning, I can foresee that we'll be increasing our on-site programming more so.
Okay. Any questions for Nancy?
I don't,
Oh, good.
All good?
Okay. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
out. Next up, we have Town Administration Board of Selectmen budgets.
is this where we find out how much money we are gonna have?
So I didn't do a presentation mostly because obviously it's the first time, I'm not sure what you'd be looking for, so I wasn't trying to do something that you wouldn't be interested in. I do obviously have the budget. There's still gonna be some adjustments made in it as the months go by, because for one thing, the Board of Selectmen just approved, or at least as a recommendation, for a 2% across the board wage increase for the non-union employees, and we have non-union employees in the Selectmen's office. Also, we're right now in the process of, we've received proposals for the town audit for the next 3 years. We haven't picked a firm yet. The screening committee is going to be interviewing firms 2 weeks from now on the 28th, make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen at that point. Similarly, for the town's insurance, mostly our property and liability, we'll be going out to bid, I'm hoping by either the end of this month or the beginning of March. Usually takes about a month, so we should have figures before we go to press for town meeting. But as an example, those numbers there are more placeholders than, I mean, not that they're zero, but we'll see what the actual numbers are as they come in. So some of these lines are not frozen in stone at this point.
So just out of curiosity, the town insurance is going back out to bid.
Yes.
And when it went out to bid last time, there was some conversation and education done about how this new insurance company was gonna do training and education and all sorts of different safety things in
Yes.
town to help reduce our rates in some case. How did that work out?
Well, I don't know on a case-by-case basis. I make sure that the training information is available for the specific department. So for instance, this Thursday, they're going to be having a discrimination in public safety departments. There's Regina Ryan, who's an expert on the field, is doing the training. It's an online training, and I've made sure that both chiefs are aware of it, and either whether they or members of their staffs can attend, and that's free. There's no additional charge for that. Similarly, if there's areas of public works training, I make sure that the departments are aware of that. I can get a list from Maya as to, obviously I've only been here since November, but I can get a list from Maya saying who has been attending the trainings, how many have we gone to, what the subjects have been. But they're
There's been
constant.
safety training and stuff too, right?
Right, so, and some of it is done in person, some of it is done virtual.
But when they first came on board, Maya was here all the time doing training, but then pandemic hit. And
I was just curious, because a lot of times people sell that in the sauce and it doesn't really happen, but you're right, I remember her being here
Yeah.
on a regular basis.
they follow
Okay.
through with a lot of in-person.
Yeah.
What is the the actual timing of when the audit takes place?
So think about it in terms of fiscal '22, the year we're in right now. That audit won't take place until they may do a little preliminary work this spring, but the major part gets done in the fall and winter, so the fall of this year into the winter of '22, '23. So June 30th is when the books close, then they audit the books this coming fall. But we appropriate the money for that in the fiscal '23 budget.
Right.
Because we don't know yet, in fact, we'll be getting the bids in. So it'll be a 3-year contract. We've gone out to bid for 23, 22, 23, and 24, but budget years 23, 24, and 25. That's when we'll be spending the money for those 3 years. So for instance, right now, our financial staff's working with the auditors to finish the fiscal '21 audit, which is being paid out of the fiscal '22 budget.
Right. So that's not complete yet. I was just
Correct.
wondering, because the fiscal year '22 expend is way below the budget. So
Yes,
they just
and
haven't
that's why.
finished. Okay,
We've had transitions, obviously, in a number of departments. That's part of the reason.
true.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, with Melanie, yep. Make sure I don't have any questions.
Well, I mean, it looks like there's still some work to be done on this budget and things. And
Yeah.
what is the anticipation on healthcare increases? 7%,
It's,
8%?
that'll be a maximum. We're hoping for closer maybe to 5 to 6%. As always, so being the GIC is not changing its plans at all for this coming year. I got that from our insurance advisor. And the GIC should be voting early next month on the rates for fiscal '23. We'll know then. We always leave a little margin for error because we have churn, people coming in plans, people coming off plans. So we don't, when we budget, and, obviously, working with the treasurer collector's office on that, we always budget a few extra people because number of people and the plans they're in may go up and down over the course of a year. And so we can't do it, we don't use what we have, let's say, on March 1st, the exact number of family plans, the exact number of individual plans, do the multiplication based on the fiscal '23 rates, say that's it. Because we always know there can be people coming in and out. But we'll have the rate information, I'm hoping, the first week of March.
One of the budgets, and I know you didn't directly put it together, but I just want to make sure on the treasurer collector budget. And I think we spoke to this in a previous meeting with the changes in the labor market and everything that's going on. I just want to make sure that the fiscal year '23 department request for the department head salary
Is not set yet.
sets. It seems like it,
It may be low.
that it's
And-
low, yeah.
And that's, so, I don't know if you're aware, we're doing a classification and compensation plan study right now. So we have the Collins Center from UMass Boston has been in, they've they've got in job description information, they've had the employees who are affected, which includes the treasurer collector's position and also all positions in that office. Questionnaire is done on rewriting the job descriptions. They're doing interviews right now over the phone so that they get more information from the employees who are filling those positions. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to present in time for town meeting, but the treasurer collector now is one of those positions we can do individual contracts, so we may have comparable community data through the Collins Center before we go to town meeting, as part of the contract negotiations, be able, if necessary, to amend that amount to an appropriate level. The numbers, the thing, you can't just pick one community, obviously. We'll do maybe 10, 12 comparable communities, because we've seen communities that are smaller than us that are now paying more for the treasurer collector. I don't mean ones that are at 13,000 people, but folks who are roughly half our size are paying more. So, and that,
Yeah, but don't count Duxbury and Cohasset.
I never, when I was next door, they were never considered comparable communities, I mean, let alone the populations. But when I chose comparable communities for Halifax, it was always population, the income data, so per capita income or family income. We'd look at average housing prices, things like that. So we look at the demographics, not just the population. Because, yeah, that northern tier of the South Shore, forget about it, it's in its own different world.
Well, Dave, if they did Duxbury and stuff, you'd probably get a raise. Right?
Oh, what's a raise?
Been the same for years.
We do Avon and Rochester, stuff like that, you know, a lot easier. Raise? Did he mention raise?
Yeah, you made some raise.
Wow.
Maybe you got something coming to you.
I get it retroactive?
No.
Well, while we have you, do you maybe want to quickly, not to put you on the spot, I know
Yeah.
you'll be able to talk about it, just update the committee on the ARPA funds, and I know the selectmen are going through a process.
And we'll just talk about the basic framework. We should be getting about $4.3 million in total for the, what I would consider the general ARPA funds. Mind you, there will be a slew of other pots of money. The schools, for instance, are getting their own separate amount. Doesn't mean they can't apply for the general ARPA money, but it's money directed specifically to the schools. But there are also going to be pots of money for lots of infrastructure projects. Some of that will be straight from the federal government that the town can apply for. Some of it will be through the state government. Again, the town can be applying for that. So that 4.3 is coming to us, but there may be opportunities in other pots, as I said, for being able to obtain grants and such for brownfield work, for the sanitary connection to Brockton and such. So 4.3, about, I think 1.6 is coming directly to us. The check is, half of it is sitting right now in the town's bank account, half of it will get this coming July. The other money is sitting in Plymouth County. We'll have to apply for that money. It's not, for the most part, it's not reimbursable. It's a direct grant. So we send in an application. They say whether it's a qualified project or not. And if it is, then we should be able to get the money immediately. It's not like the CARES Act where we had to spend the money, then apply and hope that it was a qualified activity. It's still a little bit gray as to this 10 million, what I call the standard deduction, in that the final, what's called the final rule, the set of regulations that the federal government came out with said that communities who are receiving less than $10 million in direct aid can think of it as a standard deduction against their loss of revenue. In that originally one of the eligible categories was that municipalities could figure, we thought we were going to get this much money in terms of our general revenue over the course of the last few years. Instead, the pandemic blew a hole in that. And we, not that we lost money, but we didn't get as much money as we expected. And so that gap could be filled by opera and could be used for just about any legitimate government purchase or purpose. Not paying debt, not paying retirement, but want to buy a pencil with it? Done. Want to buy a police car? Done. You want to do something else with it, whether it's operating or capital, pretty much anything went. Plymouth County is right now looking at that and saying, well, the money that we got, yeah, there's a $10 million standard deduction, but it's for the entire county outside, I think, of Brockton and Plymouth, which are getting their money directly, not through Plymouth, because they're large enough to be considered a different category of municipality. I'm checking with the state government, which is checking with the federal government, because they've had this same question asked by a lot of communities as to whether Plymouth County's interpretation is correct or not. Because if it is, what that means is we want to go back and figure what actual or estimated loss of revenue was during the pandemic. It won't be the entire $4.3 million, which means that the other money outside of any loss of revenue is going to have to fit into one of those original categories. So the popular ones you know about, infrastructure, so broadband, water, and sewer, as an example. It can go to everything from masks to vaccination clinics, things directly related to the pandemic. It can go to bonus payments for employees. Mind you, there are a lot of asterisks on that, and the towns so far, and most communities so far, some have, some, but most haven't, have not used that money for that purpose, either as a one-time bonus or anything else. It can go to small businesses, it can, in terms, or families or individuals who, if you can show how they were directly affected by the pandemic, you can put together, in essence, an aid program to assist all those individuals, families, and businesses because they were affected. I'm not sure how well that's going to work for smaller communities like East Bridgewater. Not that we don't have that, but we don't have a structure in place that allows us to together a program. If you're Brockton, you have an economic development department, for instance. You have grant programs that do things like this already. You can structure something along those lines. I think it's going to be more challenging for communities of our size to do something. Doesn't mean we can't, but we're going to, reading the regulations, or the regulations are like 1,700 pages, but doing the summary of it, we'd have to
I'm still on
show,
page 4.
we'd have to show, in fact, how this program that first of all, these folks were, or these businesses were directly affected by a pandemic. And then show how these programs would help those individuals, those families, those businesses, those groups, however you want to do the demographics, that would assist them. For instance, I know some places are saying, okay, look, this neighborhood maybe suffered greater unemployment than others. This neighborhood had other issues. We're building a playground, we're building recreation. There's a health concern that improves health, but also, and such, so that you can help those affected communities, whether it's based on geography or other demographics. The board has, outside of the $350,000 that it originally allocated for engineering and administration work in connection with the sewer that we would hope to connect to Brockton, the only other funding they've done is the ambulance, and that was a pricing issue in the sense of, this was a model that the fire chief could get right now at a discount versus what he was hoping to, versus waiting 18 to 24 months. And it's still, we should have, even under the most pessimistic idea, we should still have enough money under the loss of revenue to cover both things. But the first one obviously would be covered under infrastructure anyway. The board has asked for people to apply to serve on the ARPA committee. The board's made a distinction to say, if your organization, if your department will be applying for money, we appreciate your interest in serving on the committee, but we want no conflicts of interest. We want nobody recusing themselves and no one accusing, well, hey, I'll take care of you if you take care of me. We're both serving on the committee. So the folks on the committee will not be the folks looking for money, and vice versa. The folks looking for money, mind you, all legitimate, will be coming to the committee. I believe we had 16 people, something on that order, apply. I think a couple of people have already dropped out because of that separation. But the board's continuing to look at, and I think we'll come back in more, either at the end of February or the beginning of March, and come up with a committee. Maybe it's 5 people, maybe it's 7 people to serve on that. It doesn't mean town officials can't serve on it. I know we had someone from your committee interested, someone from capital planning, but it's going to be a matter of saying, your committee's not coming in for funding, great. We welcome you being on that ARPA committee. The ARPA committee is a recommendation committee. Under the federal laws, the board of selectmen is the sole authority for making the final decision about how to use the ARPA money, as long as it follows the regulations that the feds promulgated.
A couple of weeks ago, we had Board of Health in here, and we were talking about the situation with mental health in the community. Some of that money could, if it's
Yes.
approved, could be used for mental health and.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's no question, whether it's adults, whether it's the elderly, whether it's children and families, a lot of people have suffered through that. There's a lot of need in there. Mind you, finding services to fulfill that need may be a challenge. I mean, I think if you've been reading the articles just this week, the number of people who are leaving the field
I saw
is
that.
far a lot more than the number of people willing to come into the field. So, but yes, it would be a legitimate expense. And let's see, a couple other things. Decisions on this have to be made by December of 2024. So there's nothing preventing the board, they don't have to rush in. They don't have to make a decision tomorrow or even by the end of this calendar year. They have time to make those decisions. The money itself has to be expended, I think, by the end of December of '26, so that you could have a long-term plan. And in some cases, talk about construction costs, it may be better to wait a little while for all the snags in pricing to, readjust themselves. We may be able to do better buying something, authorizing the money in '24, buying something in '25, rather than authorizing the money in '22 and buying something now. But we'll see, the board hasn't even started the application process. Rebecca Johnson in our office is working on application form. We'll see how things go from there. But outside of the two things I mentioned, the board hasn't shown any intent to, try and get everything done during the next couple of months.
It will be a long process. That ARPA committee, they will be together for a while. Because as, Charlie's saying, we're not gonna rush into these things. We have to, make sure everyone gets a fair share. It's not just the town that can apply for this. Businesses can apply, individuals can apply, like Charlie said. This is something people may not understand. That's why some of the people that have applied, their group may be looking for something, and they may have to back out of this committee. Okay, and these are the things that, we just found. And a lot of the applications come in last Friday, so we almost doubled our applications in one day. So we're going through it just to make sure that everything is done right, and, that committee will be reporting to us probably what they've accomplished at least once a month, once they get set up, and they may not be set up for a month or two.
So aside from ARPA, what's our revenue picture look like as we're going?
Well,
into the
better
budget?
than a couple of weeks ago. The big plus for us, and of course there'd be a little bit of debate on how to use the money, is that the Chapter 70 funding level went up significantly for the town. We were not one of those communities that received the minimum of $30 per student aid. About half the school districts in the state did, we did not. Now, so the bad news is we got the money. The reason is that our percentage of low-income families or students in low-income families went up. And so we sort of hit a tier, and so, our amount per student went up because of that. I mean, overall, at least budget-wise, it helps.
Was that caused because people out of work because of the pandemic? Or is it?
I don't think
something
so.
across that's
I'd have to
happening
ask the
now?
state what numbers they were using. I would tend to doubt that because so many of the, as I mentioned, about half the communities did not get any significant amounts of it. They got the minimum $30. So, in talking to John Shea, he looked at it more because he knows more about the Chapter 70 formula. But that was the reason. Now, I'm sure it might be part of it, but it didn't seem to be Commonwealth-wide, that everybody saw the same thing. I don't know specifically in East Bridgewater that our unemployment rate has stayed higher, as an example, than in other communities. I think it's, it was simply a demographic change, is my guess, overall, especially because I suspect they're using data maybe about a year old. But all the money we get from the state is all the same color. It may come from different lines in the budget, but it's all green. The schools certainly would make the case that Chapter 70 money is their money. I'm not, in a sense, disagreeing with them, but the town's obligation is to ensure that, obviously, we provide them with all the Chapter 70 money and then a minimum contribution above and beyond. If we met that, then, it all ends up in the same pot. We should be able to use some of that money to help other budgets, because it can be spread out even though it's specifically listed as Chapter 70.
Yep.
You all will see what the school budget is like. Everything's still under negotiation there, for instance, for the teachers' contracts and everything like that. But it certainly isn't bad news. What's called unrestricted general government aid, or UGA, only went up 2.7%. When I say only, what the state has said, and they, under the Baker administration, I believe even under the Patrick administration, they basically set up an agreement with the state legislature that there'll be a consensus revenue forecast each year of how much state revenues will increase from year to year, and that the municipalities will share in that increase, so that if they think revenues for the state will go up 2.7% from year to year, then Ugga will go up 2.7%. Great. It sounds wonderful, and it's worked very nicely. If you look at a table or chart showing that graph from 14 to 20, you know, it goes up a little bit and down a little bit in the sense of it's never an exact science. You know, you might predict 2.7, it might be 2.5, it might be 2.9. So maybe one year we make out a little better than we would have otherwise. Another year, the state gets a little bit more money than expected, we don't see it. Well, contrary to what we all thought was going to happen, certainly I did a couple of years ago, pandemic revenues for the state have been wonderful. They've gone up far faster than expected. So, but what the state did was, instead of use the estimate they came up with a year ago of what fiscal '22 revenues were going to be, they used an updated one, which was a higher base, which meant what they're now saying fiscal '22 to '23 is only this much. In reality, it's this much. Let's say 8%, 10% increase in state revenues. But we're only seeing a 2.7, which means the state is saying, we're going to keep a lot more of the money that we're getting, than we're not going to share it equally with you. So the board will be writing our legislators. I'm sure most communities will be doing the same to see, even though the governor's sent in the budget, there's nothing preventing the state legislature from going back and saying, wait a minute, we've got a lot of money. Now, admittedly, maybe we won't share it quite equally, but we can certainly afford to give the cities and towns a greater amount than a 2.7% increase. In our budget here, it's not a huge portion of the town's budget, but every dollar is going to count. So that if for Ugga, if we get, instead of 2.7% increase, we get an 8% increase. Great. I mean, that's going to be helpful, because obviously you've got a number of requests from a number of departments, not just the normal increases because of not cost of living, I don't want to use that, but the inflationary spiral we're in right now. But you also have service request increases, you have personnel request increases. We may be able to do more with those, depending on how you all feel, how the townspeople feel, than I would have thought 2 or 3 months ago. So we're in a better place than we would have been, which was not a bad place even then, a couple months ago, but we're in a better place than we were a couple months ago.
But we'll go on for more.
Yes.
Don't get me going, Dave, on all this stuff. Just don't do it.
That's very helpful.
Well, it would be nice to see the legislature slack off a bit and give us a little bit more instead of holding on to it. We keep talking about these reserves and these funds that they have, et cetera. They're gonna hold them. They wanna figure out the best way to disperse them. I mean, I've been around in years where they've done a supplemental budget after so it would be nice for all the communities in a whole, as we recover from the pandemic, to get some sort of relief. I mean, I will say that, we all know the schools have been under strain with all this. Like, what do we do? How do we handle this? We know the fire department's been under strain. We know the police departments, and these are these, frontline workers who just had to go through this pandemic. And then the mental health issues. I think that's contributing a lot to some of the problems that we have all around. So it would be nice to see the legislature do something. Maybe they will, because they're going to finally open the State House up. Right? Last one in the country.
That's right.
Right? But we're going to open it now. All right?
Our state reps and our state senators have been fantastic throughout this entire ordeal, and we do expect that once we put our letter together and we sign it, and then we'll follow through with either they let us in, we'll talk to them at the State House, not we'll talk to them
Well,
individually.
Allison better pay attention. I know she got engaged, right, on Valentine's Day, so congratulations, number one, but don't forget about us.
George won't let her.
So, good. Well, maybe there's some good news on the horizon
Hopefully.
that will help us address some of these needs that we have out there that, you know, some are true needs. So, all right, I'm done.
Any other questions for Charlie or Dave? We have Marilyn patiently waiting to go over.
You know, and mind you, I'll be back at some, and, you know, as numbers come in.
Absolutely, yeah,
You know, this
yeah.
isn't the only time I'll see you all.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
thank you. Welcome. Marilyn Thompson, our interim treasurer collector, is keeping everything running.
Trying hard. It's going.
Well, that's good. Thank you for coming out. So what we've just been doing is asking department heads to go through and high level, I mean, yours looks pretty straightforward. There doesn't seem to be anything that's, you know, crazy off, at least in the regular budget, but take us through and talk through any changes that kind of stand out.
Well, we had level fund expenses, so I just kind of played with the numbers a little bit because, you know, during the pandemic, we didn't go to conferences, so, you know, travel and conference costs and stuff went down, but we've gotten notification from, well, the postage always goes up, but from our billing company that, you know, he's had to increase his costs for stock and envelopes and whatever, and also for his company for payroll and stuff, so, you know, there's a little bit of cost increase there, so I just kind of moved the numbers around a little bit to stay within the level funding, but where I think, you know, we weren't going to be spending in certain line items that, because of the pandemic, we're not going to school as much and travel, you know, so. Other than that, it was just, you know, I did the steps for everybody in the office and, you know, what they're entitled to, as far as the staff goes.
The clerical that went up a little bit more. Was there like
So,
education or?
two of the girls, and there's an issue with their pay, but two of the girls were taken out of the union and put on nothing. So they're not on the personnel grid, they don't have a personal contract, they're not on the union grid, they're just kind of nowhere. And they were, if you look at their wage and personnel grid, they should be like around the administrative assistant's pay scale. So they didn't get that bump up this year that everybody else got because they weren't put on a grid. So I took the grid that's out there for the non-union and the wage and personnel scale and put them on where they should be and then moved them up. So one of them got a bigger raise than the other one because she was at a lower step when they became assistants. So they were in the office, they were in the union, and then they get moved up. One's an assistant collector, one's an assistant treasurer, and those are new positions. And then one of the girls went upstairs and we replaced her, so that's new. And then there's a senior clerk position that's open that needs to be filled.
Okay. So with the vacation buyback then,
I went,
they still get that if they're not, so if they were pulled out of the union, how do they qualify for?
well, I used the wage and personnel guidelines.
Okay,
Because I think it was an oversight that they weren't put on that,
okay,
because they weren't offered a personal contract, they really have to be somewhere. So I went by the wage and personnel bylaws and put in what they're entitled to do, which I believe is 1 week's paid vacation they can buy back each year after, I think it's after 5 years.
okay.
So one girl was already past her 5 years, one girl's getting there this year, so I did too. I put the stipend in, that's the stipend for certification for treasurer collector. I'm not sure who you're gonna get, but if they had the stipend, it would be nice to have the money to pay them for it. So that was kind of a, not sure where to go with that. So I tried to put in what I think would be used or needed, for replacements and stuff.
I mean, everything else is pretty straightforward on the expense side, or the other expenses.
The only variable really that we're gonna be waiting for is what the full-time position department head's gonna be.
Yeah, I think that, yeah,
And that's low.
I think so
I mean,
too.
15 years ago when I first was here, the treasurer collector was making 95,000.
Wow.
15 years ago, so.
Let's not talk about that one.
I know. But there are a lot of people that have gotten up there, and if you get somebody that's been around and, has experience, they're gonna want, you just hired, some other departments that, at higher rates,
Right.
Right.
There's
So,
a lot of you people wanted out there too, treasurers.
yes, and I know of like 5 new openings that will be coming up by April. So we get like 38 resumes, and there's not a lot with experience.
Yeah.
So, everybody in the office is new. So the new treasurer assistants, a new treasurer collector assistants, the new girl in the office, and there's an open position. So it's not like somebody's been there for 10 years that can help out. They're all new learning their jobs too, so.
But they did a good job getting the excise tax bills out, because I got them all, let me tell you.
Yeah, we had an issue with the excise tax bills.
Oh, the envelopes.
The
yeah.
envelopes, yeah, the printing company pulled the wrong plate and used our old PO box
Oh, jeez.
in Reading versus the new one in Boston. So I contacted the post office in Reading and asked them, what can we do? Can we come up once a week and get them? Can you forward them to Boston? And he graciously said he'd forward them to Boston once a week for us. So that's a big help, but, people are a little cranky about it, but, if you mailed it to Reading and your check hasn't cashed in a few weeks, then you're gonna have to give us a call and we're gonna have to work something out,
But it's so easy to do it online.
Yeah,
with
there's,
the bank account.
what's
It really
the
is,
percentage
yeah.
of people who
That's-
pay online?
It's increased greatly with the pandemic because people couldn't come in, but we still have a lot of people that on tax day come in. We have a line almost all day long, people coming in, paying in cash, or even with the check. People, they won't even drop it in the drop box out there. They want to come in and get a stamped receipt. A lot of people that are buying houses and remortgaging, with the lower rates and stuff, tend to have their taxes escrowed. So, we get bulk money from the escrow companies, so we don't have to deal with, really anybody. It's a download of, a couple $1 million, you post it and you're good to go. But there are quite a few that still write a check and mail it in. And
So it's like 50/50?
no, I want to, probably 75-25, I think about 75%,
Online.
between mortgages and do online, or some type of, generated check, versus coming in or mailing it. Even
is
with
good.
postage coming up,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't know that much, that's good.
yeah.
All right, any other questions for Marilyn?
No, it's just, it's
Straightforward.
pretty straightforward, I think. We've got the one variable that we'll be waiting for, I guess, at some point. And there's an open position for a senior clerk?
A senior clerk position is open. When I was here before, it was full-time. They moved it to, I think, 21 hours. I'm not sure, I can't remember what I budgeted for. I budgeted for 20 hours. Wasn't sure if they were gonna go with, 18 and not do benefits, or you want the 20 that they wanna come, get the benefits and maybe move up you know, so you gotta weigh where you want that person to be.
Okay.
So, with the more online payments, you don't as much over the window, so it wasn't needed. It's a needed position, but maybe not quite full-time.
So maybe they should combine that one with the one from the Conservation Committee.
Yeah, there you go.
Make it a full-time position, probably get a good candidate.
Might be able to, yeah. It's not a bad idea.
Yay for governor.
I'll give you some of that extra money we got if you did that.
Did Charlie do benefits? I'm just,
He didn't. No, if you want to,
no, I just,
we
It
talked
was-
briefly about that the GIC was,
yeah, they're still, March 3rd, I think they're gonna have their meeting to send out the rates, and the other companies that we use, Boston Mutual, they haven't had an increase in like 30 years, so, we only pay 50/50 of the basic plan. So anybody has an optional plans, that's all 100% on them. So their basic plan, they haven't changed in forever. And I think it's Altus Dental. They said there won't be any rate increases, so. But it was the GIC that, you know, the big one. You always have to wait, you know, school, GIC. yeah.
So the medical is 50/50 now? Is that what you said?
The 50/50 on dental,
Dental.
yeah.
Well, just, and also it's here in that what's the old indemnity plan is a 50/50 basis. I think I've got this right, the PPO is 60/40, the HMO is 70/30.
That's health insurance stuff,
Right.
not dental, yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Oh,
yeah.
that, okay. Yeah. 70/30, and then 50/50 for medics.
All right, looks
right.
good to me.
thank you for
Okay.
coming out.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Okay, well, that wraps up our first reviews. I think the ones that we have, obviously, we're still waiting on the schools. I did see that they had posted another, I believe they have a meeting tomorrow to continue collective bargaining with the teachers' union, so I don't know where that's at, but I'll check in with Liz after Wednesday to see if she has any estimates on how close they may be or how far away they may be. And they don't get a lot of their numbers until March either. I mean, we have the Chapter 70, so hopefully they can start to put some numbers together, but I think we do have to understand that collective bargaining, because that's the biggest item out there. And then we'll, continue to work with Charlie.
Good night.
Good night. On fine tuning his overall budgets that he's responsible for. Hopefully they can get the town treasurer collector hired so we can understand that line item. And I requested a meeting with Charlie and Dave Sheedy. We're meeting on Friday morning just to start to talk through some of the personnel requests that have come in, adds to staff, so that I think we all need to be on the same page. So if anyone on the committee has any feedback that you want me to take to that meeting, I'm happy to do so.
Your idea was good, right? Combine those.
Well, no, that's a good one, yeah.
2 clerks make 1 full-time. Just go to 2 different offices.
Well, it gives them more visibility in town hall, more well-rounded, more, opportunity and stuff, so, if it works, it works, it'd be good.
Right, right.
They're gonna be able to, like, work together as far as their, like, priorities go and that type of, you know what I'm saying? They're gonna be able to adjust schedules.
Yeah, I mean,
according to-
they'd have to figure all that out.
I mean, it's just half-time here, half-time there, whether it's, 3 days one week at one place and 2 days the next, or whatever it is, I'm sure they can work it out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna probably have to, if we have a meeting sometime in March, the 24th, I have to go to the finance committee with my budget.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Be
You're on the other side.
Yeah.
So we're ahead of other towns.
We haven't even started.
Yeah, so that's good.
We're just getting our budgets together. But I'm
That's good.
set,
I think
finance
we're in
committee
good shape,
set me for
especially with,
24th.
town meeting's been pushed out a little bit, right? Election's been pushed out. The state's actually starting to produce some numbers at a reasonable time. And like I said, with the State House opening up, it should start clicking, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
Roger that.
So we'll see what happens there.
We'll get there. Any other topics for discussion?
Nope.
Not
I
on
think we're good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night, everyone.
So do we have a date?